real women, we don't compete, we collaborate. And Jessica and Angela have really powerful testimonies that really tug at your heart. And by alone, their platform can stand just great. But they actually introduce something into a conversation all of us should know about, which is financial literacy, which we'll talk about a little bit later, right? So we collaborate so that as they're telling their story, we can really give you real life examples of people living through things and then also offering you solution at the same time. Is just a wonderful woman. I met her through a mom's group called Mocha Moms, which if you've never heard of that, you should. It's a fantastic organization that if I wouldn't have known about Mocha Moms, I wouldn't know a lot of moms and where I live at just in general. It is, it's kind of like, it's more for the moms and the kids, but we make it about the kids anyway. So I met her through Mocha Mom, and I was aware of a test that she went through in life that turned into a testimony for her and her platform. But what I didn't know is all the details and the behind the scenes stuff, from just the amount of resiliency that she actually endured and where she's at now and things of that nature. And some of the details that really bring you to a place of making you think about just your life and some decisions you have to make and saying yes to things and not really knowing the end story. So Angela is the one that always starts off with the story when we get together and talk, just because she sets the platform of what Jessica comes in to say and then how we all bring it together. So without further ado, she's going to introduce herself through her testimony and what she does. So Angela.
My name is Angela Alexander, and my story, I was in Japan on military duty, and when I was there, my husband and our 4 children were driving down the highway right here in San Bernardino County, 215, and a car cut them off. And our truck hit the center divider. And upon impact, they were all knocked unconscious. Then our truck went backwards across that highway and fell 25 feet below and landed upside down on top of 2 other parked vehicles with people inside those cars. Praise God, our car found their engine and not their roof. Now, I'm in Japan on duty. And so simultaneously, I'm working with a group of people. And Lieutenant Mavechi, he comes up to me and says, "Alexander, I need to speak with you." Now, this was April Fool's weekend, so it was crazy. And everybody's doing all these practical jokes, and I just thought it was another joke. And so we just started walking and talking about nothing, and we ended up at the door of the small office, and inside was a man who was introduced to me as a priest. And there was another lady from my unit, and the priest was shaking, nervously holding this paperwork from the Red Cross. And he says, "Angela, your family has been in a car accident." And from the looks on their faces, I knew this was no April Fool's joke. And he proceeded to say, "Your husband, Suri, he's in the hospital, but he's okay. Your daughter, Angela, she's in the hospital, but she's okay. Your daughter, Angelina, she's in the hospital, but she's okay. But your 2 8-year-old sons, Maurice and Roger, they didn't make it." And I'm telling you, instantly, as if no one else was in the room but God and me, I recalled a prayer my children said before going to bed, and it was, "Now I lay me down to sleep. I pray the Lord my soul to keep. If I should die before I wake, I pray the Lord my soul to take." And I don't know, maybe because I need to hear from my sons so badly at that moment, it felt as if I heard them say, "No, Mommy, that priest is wrong. We prayed the Lord our soul to take. We did make it. We're here with Jesus." And I'm telling you, the people in the room were watching and waiting for my world to turn upside down, but instead they witnessed my world still in alignment with the one we call our Heavenly Father, our Prince of Peace, our Comforter and our Provider, the Almighty God. And that feeling right there is so special to me, because if you had asked me the day before, "Girl, what would you do if something happened to your children?" I clearly remember saying and stating, "Girl, you just have to put me on a crazy ward and go live your life, because I'm through." And when that didn't happen, I didn't know what to think. As a matter of fact, the next day I was on a 10-hour plus plane ride from Japan to Los Angeles. And I kept pinching myself because I couldn't believe how at ease I was, how at peace I was. I didn't believe that I still knew the alphabets. And I said, well, maybe I'm so crazy that I don't even know I'm crazy. Because people kept saying, oh, she's just too detached. She's numb. She doesn't understand what happened because she's so far away. But I knew exactly. But I didn't know why God had interceded on my behalf. But eventually, little glimpse, he would tell me, gave me a little glimpse. Matter of fact, within an hour of that flight, I almost sat straight up in my seat because I recalled this letter my son had written about a month before the car crash. He was 8 years old in the 3rd grade. He had a math test at school, and he finished early and received his A. Now, he had to be quiet while his classmates completed their test. And in that quiet time, he wrote this letter to me and my husband. Now, he had never written us a letter before, so this is not one of many or any. And he ran in the house from school that afternoon. He shouted, Mommy, Daddy, I wrote your letter. And I said, what do you mean you wrote us a letter? Where are you going? He says, nowhere, Mommy. I just love you. And I'm telling you, I said, baby, get the checkbook because whatever brother wants, yes, he can have two. And the three of us sat at the foot of our bed. We read his letter aloud. And he wrote 3 pages, and he not only expressed that he loved us, he explained why he loved us. And at the end of all 3 pages, he said, bye-bye. And that letter was so special to me. And so the Thursday before their double memorial service, I was praying in my kitchen. I said, dear God, thank you so much for Maurice's letter. It is truly the reason I can stand here right now. But I need to know that Roger's also at peace. I need to know that Roger was also visited by the Holy Spirit. And God laid one word on my heart, and he said, search. And I didn't know what that meant, but I'm telling you what, I started searching my house, and I didn't know what I was looking for. And I searched my home for over 3 hours that afternoon, and I did not find anything that gave me the peace that I trusted, prayed, and believed for. But as only as God can create it, as only as God can orchestrate it, that very evening was open house in my children's elementary school. All 4 went to the same 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. So my girl at that time, my husband was still in the hospital, and my girls were home, and they needed some normalcy in their life, and their friends on the block, but they was going to open house. So I said, you know what, girls, we're going to go as well. And we left a house full of people, and we went to Angela's 5th grade class, Angelina's 4th, Maurice's 3rd grade class. His class was extremely hard to get through. Then we walked into Roger's 2nd grade class, and I spoke to Mrs. Blassie for a little bit, and I asked, like all the other parents, what did my son do for open house? Now, 2 weeks before the car crash, Mrs. Blassie had given all of her 2nd graders all kind of arts and crafts supplies and simply said, do something from open house, your parents are coming, with no other instructions. So Roger had cut out the shape of a house with closed doors, and it was stapled to the wall. And Mrs. Blassie had like 25, 30 students. She didn't open it up. And I took it down, and when I opened it up, it says, Mommy, I have a big backyard and a big house. And I said, wait a minute, stop right there, because we actually have the smallest backyard on the block. And I had to realize at that moment he was referring to his heavenly home, where he does have a big backyard and he does have a big house. And he went on to say some more things in his letter. And when I was writing the memorial program, God told me, Angela, their letters were written to soothe your soul, but more important to share. And then that's when the arguments began. Because I was like, oh no, God, I'm not an author. And I'm definitely not a public speaker. And I rehearsed, nursed, and owned all those negative thoughts for months before I surrendered 6 months later. And another miracle is when I came back from Japan, I came home, and about a week later I saw this growing stack of mail just on the table. And I started going through it, and about halfway through it, I found this letter from this insurance company. And I was like, what is this? And then I had to think back. Well, a week before I left for Japan on my military duty, the solicitor called selling accidental life insurance. And I was busy helping all 4 of my children with their spelling tests. And so I just said, no, by a click, I'm good. I was far from good. But I was busy. God allowed this woman to call me back again the night before I left for Japan. And I felt so guilty that I had kind of dismissed her the week before. So I listened to her spiel. She said, I'm selling accidental life insurance. You don't have to go through any kind of medical checkups to qualify. It's just $7.95 a month for you, $9.95 a month if you want your entire family. And we don't need any information. We have all your information from your credit card company. When you get your policy, if you don't like it, cancel, you get the first month free. I said, fine, bye, give me the family rate, click, bye. Forgot about the phone call less than 5 minutes. And so here I am, going through this stack of mail. 2 weeks later, opened up this letter from this life insurance company. And it said, family coverage. Effective date, April 1st, 2000. Now, April 1st is the day my sons passed away. The insurance company told me they had never had a policy go into effect the day somebody passed away. And that just let me know that God is always on time, never late, a dollar short, a day late. And when we say God is good all the time, and all the time God is good, I truly believe that statement, even on my darkest day.
Okay, so you got to take a breath before that awesome testimony. Because, anyone with kids, if you really, the power of a story is putting yourself in that person's position to have great empathy and sympathy, and imagining like you getting that phone call and you knowing that, right? So like Angela said, it was a solicitor, and I would like to say that person was a protector, was making sure the family was there, because ultimately, no matter what financial services that you're talking about, because actually life insurance is a part of financial services, is there to make sure something happens to you. Well, one of the purposes, if something happens to you and you're the provider, the breadwinner, your family can mourn and still not have to worry about money. They can actually mourn your death. They can do a homegoing and still be able to support themselves, right? So that's about finances. So I call it a part of financial services. But that person that day, the thing you could ask, like, what if she didn't call? Was it a she?
Yes.
Right? Mm-hmm. So what if she didn't call? And then what if she would have got discouraged and not called her back? Mm-hmm. Because Angela was not nice. Right? Were you nice, Angela?
Not day one. I was busy.
Right. She was busy. She was being a mom. She wasn't nice. And anybody that makes a call to someone that you don't know, and you're talking about life insurance, come on now. A lot of people don't look at it as a mean of financial services. They don't look at it as retirement, making an investment in their family. They look at it totally different because they could immediately think about death. And life insurance is not just about that, but I'm not going to get into that. So that person had to overcome their fears, right? So dealing with fears or dealing with rejection, all those different things that person overcame just to make sure her family was in a better situation if something would happen. And so you see how powerful that testimony is? Like, that's going to talk to a person. It's going to make you think of, what if something happens to me and I'm a mom, or God forbid, all things being equal, nobody thinks about bearing their kids. Like, I am planning on my daughter bearing me, but not the opposite way around. But in the event that does happen, I think as a parent, I'm going to mourn more than my daughter mourning me, because like, I'm older than her, so she's probably like, oh, you're older than me. Expected, right? So you're like, oh my God, I didn't outlive my parent. And so that was just awesome in itself, that went into effect that day, and that she didn't have to worry about the burden of having to offset those costs. On the other end of the spectrum is Jessica, right? Who is just a bubbly personality, vibrant young lady. Not technically a millennial, but I think you're kind of borderline. She's kind of borderline millennial. And she comes with a great story of a test that turns into a testimony. and understanding that sometimes in life it's not about the end result, it's about the journey we have to go through, because the journey actually helps us get to the better version of ourselves no matter what. She's on the other spectrum of telling her story and just really going through life and being resilient. But unlike Angela's story is 20 plus years, you know, in her life, where where Jessica's story is like still kind of raw and new, and so she still is dealing with that part of her story. So without further ado, I introduce you, Jessica.
I'm Jessica Poche, and as she said, this is really raw and it's really new, so you're about to get true emotions, so excuse me if that's what you get. So my story is in June 24th, 2014. I married an amazing man who was my friend. We never dated, got married, and we knew each other for 9 years, so that's why I got to marry him like that, because we knew each other for a while. And we had, it was a little rough in the beginning, but we kept the faith, kept on pushing, did what we need to do. But he was just an amazing man, and when we got married a few months after, he just was in and out of the hospital. He got really sick, so his liver was failing, and he had being diagnosed with liver cirrhosis. So we started going through the process of getting a liver transplant. So in and out of the hospital, I'm taking care of him and just spending amazing quality time. And something that he taught me, and I have to share this, because one thing he taught me was the value of time with the person that you're with. And he used to always say, give me my flowers while I yet live. So we would tell each other how we felt in that relationship 100% purely. We didn't wait. I didn't wait till, he's gone. He wasn't going to wait till I was gone to share how we really felt about each other. So we really poured out our love to each other, and it was just an amazing experience. He loved me like Christ loved the church. I respected and loved him like the church should respect and love Christ. And it was just an amazing marriage. And so while we're in and out of the hospital and he's sick, he's having little conversations with me and sharing little information with me. And one time he was telling me like, hey, let's make sure that we have our life insurance taken care of. He said, I have you covered, so let's make sure we have the papers up to date, make sure they're accessible. And it was like, okay, all right, sure. But I have faith and belief that you're going to be absolutely fine, so we don't really have to have this conversation because you're going to be healed, So I ignored it. I left that alone. And we just kept living life, again, in and out of the hospital. When I say in and out, I was like sometimes 2-3 weeks. I wouldn't leave my husband because I don't believe in that. So I couldn't work like I should because he needed me. So I made sure I was in the hospital next to him. He had his hospital bed. I had the bed right next to him. And I made sure he was taken care of. So we were going through a financial burden because I was the only one who really could work, but could not because I had to take care of him, So it was a hard situation. So again, we're back and forth, in and out, sharing life together, and eventually we have another conversation, and he sits me down again, and he told me, we need to make a list of people you need to contact if I pass. And so I'm looking at him again. And he said, we have to update the life insurance. This is how much. He says, I'll tell you. He says $700,000. That's what he said. He said, I have a policy for you for $700,000. We have to make sure everything is taken care of. And again, it was just like, hey, and I let that be. I left it alone. So going through the process, still trusting God, and I'm believing hardcore that he's going to be healed and he's going to be okay. As we're sitting in the hospital, going through the process of a liver transplant, I'm like, yes, he's going to get the liver, all will be well. And he was 11 years older than me, so I'm 32 now, but he was 42. We got married, he was 41. Yeah, he was 41 years old when we got married. So one day we had a conversation in the hospital, and he looked at me, because I was just talking about his healing with another person, like, you're going to be okay. And he looked at me and he said, God didn't tell me he was going to heal me. And I looked at him and he said, I'm riding off of your faith. And I looked at him again and it was like, okay. And so throughout our time, we would have little conversations. I pick up on little words that he'd say, like, when I go. Or one time we were driving to LA to the hospital and we were looking downtown. I said, we should move out here. And he said, you're going to move out here? You know, like little stuff like that where he was preparing to leave. But I didn't know that that's what's going to happen. So one night we're at the hospital. And we're there a lot, different ones back and forth, and we're at the hospital, and he wasn't getting the best of treatment there, and so he asked to leave. And for some people who don't know about liver, the liver is your most vital organ in your body. It controls everything. Your brain function, it controls your hormones, it helps build your system, like it takes out toxins. It's that main thing that if that's gone, then you're just gone. It pulls down your kidneys and it just takes over everything. And so there were instances where my husband wasn't okay. You know, if his ammonia was up high. There was a moment where he forgot who I was. He didn't know me as his wife. And so I had to go through that battle of convincing him that I was his wife, because he didn't know who I was. And that was a whole journey in itself, you know, maybe for another time. But so we went through with that. So his liver being messed up would cause different distractions in his life. And so I just stood solid on God and stood solid with him, you know, because that's my husband. I'm not leaving him, you know, no matter what. And so we're in the hospital and he was kind of out of it. They kind of call it like a conscious coma, where you can't really speak too much, but you're alert, but you're just not really as functional as you should be. So he was kind of down. And then there was a time, it's like he woke up and he was himself. And when he was himself, he came to me and he told me he wanted to leave the hospital. And I looked at him and I said, okay. And he said, you know, let's bring the doctors in. We're going to talk to the doctors and let's go. And it was like, okay. And because I knew this was my husband speaking and not just, you know, being sick or wanting to run away, then I submitted myself back down under him like I should. And I let him take the lead and I just backed him up. So we talked to the doctors, brought him in. They thought we were crazy. And he was like, you know what? I've been asking you guys for help. And you guys haven't really been helping me. I've been asking you guys to lift weights so I can get my strength back. You guys haven't done it. I asked for you to just take me outside just so I can feel the air, because I've been in the hospital so long and you can't even take me outside. And he said, if I'm gonna die, I'd rather die out there than to die in here. And the doctors are looking at him, then they look at me like, say something to change his mind. And I just told them, look, this is my husband speaking. I know it's him. So I'm backing him up. And we're going out. And this is what we told him. We said, we're going out like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. We're going to trust God whether he comes through or not. So if he is healed and good, okay, we're going to trust God. But if he is not, then we're going to trust God. So after that day we left, and it was a few days right before Thanksgiving, so I wanted family over and tried to have plans to have family over, but he was in such a rush to see people. So we went to go see like my sister, spend some time with them, took my niece, and he was like, I have to see my mom. Went to go see his mom. He said, I have to see his daughter, which is somebody he kind of adopted in. So he's like, I have to see her. So he had to make all these trips, like he was on purpose, you know, and I'm looking like, okay. He's like, no, I just have to go here. So we were driving around, making sure he saw people he needed to see. And so we went home, and it was Thanksgiving night. So that was on a Thursday. Yep, that was Thanksgiving night on Thursday. And so we had our time together. And then on that next day, on Friday, we were spending our time. And I was cooking for him, because that's what I do. I was cooking for him. And the way our house was, we had our kitchen, and then there was a wall. And so the other side is the living room. And so he's laying on the couch in the living room. And he asked me to come here, so I came. And he looked at me, and he said, "Do you know who you are?" And I looked at him, and I was like, "Lord Jesus, here we go." Like, he forgot me again. You know, now I have to go through this whole traumatic experience. And then I was like, "I'm your wife. I'm Jessica. You know, we've been married for such and such." And he's like, "No, no, 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 no." And then he waited, and he said, "Do you know who you are?" And I looked at him, and I was like, "Okay." And I said, "Yeah, I'm a child of a Most High King. You know, I know who I am." And so, so then I go back in the kitchen, cooking his meal. And then got everything set. So we were laying on the couch. Our couch is huge, so we would lay facing each other. And or we're watching a movie and talking. And then he asked me again, and he said, "Do you know who you are?" And I looked at him, and I said, "Okay, this is like hint, hint. He's trying to have a deeper conversation than what I'm thinking." So I was like, "You know what? No, I don't. I don't fully get it." And then that was like the end of our conversation for the night. So about an hour later, he asked me, I asked him, I said, "Are you ready to go to bed?" And he said, which was kind of odd, but he was like, "Yes, I'm ready to go." And I said, "Okay." So I was helping him get into bed. And our bed is like a Paul Bunyan, real tall bed. I have to run and jump to get in it. So I'm like helping him get in the bed. And, you know, I'm like, "Hey, babe, I need you to help me out because you're a thick dude. I can't, you know, put you up there." And so he's talking to me a little bit. And then so I'm trying to go, I'm like, "Hey, like, you know, I need your help." And I go to the other side to get his hand so he can pull himself up. And he's not responding. And so I'm like, "Okay." So I'm looking at him, and so he's bleeding out of his mouth. And his eyes are kind of back. So I'm like, "All right, I don't know how this happened. I don't know where strength came from. All I can say is God, because I got him off the bed and laid him on the ground. And I asked, and this is like, to me, especially for Christians, because sometimes you don't have to be too spiritual, it's practical. I was like, "God, what do I do?" And I just heard very clearly, like, "Call 911. Like, that's your job, you know?" So I called. And so they're leading me through the process because he's not responding. My husband's on the ground, blood's coming out, and he's just, it looks like he's choking or suffocating, but it's on his blood. So I'm watching it. And I'm getting instructions on what to do. And so I'm, you know, doing chest compressions and, you know, having faith and trusting with the 911 operator on the phone. And then the police came. They came real quick too, but they came. So I had to run, let him in, and then he took control and started doing the chest compressions and everything. And so in emergency situations, for whatever reason, I get calm real quick. Like, I don't go frantic. I just get calm and practical. So I was like, how do I work out this situation, you know, to make it easier for the ambulance and stuff to get in? So I go try to find me something else to do to get out of their way. And they pull my husband from our bedroom to the living room, and they're working on him, and I can't see what they're doing. I don't want to see what they're doing. But so I'm sitting in the car because I had to clear the driveway to make sure they can get in and out. So I'm sitting in the car, I'm just praying, I'm trusting God. And, you know, I'm just like, "God, like, I want you to heal him. You know, this is my expectation, is that you're going to heal my husband. So even though it looks like this, I still trust you that you can do, you know, something different, that you can do a miracle in this situation." And so I'm sitting in the car, and it was like, we got a heartbeat. So I'm like, yes, cha-ching, like, that's one for Jesus, you know. And then again, the operator, from the guy from the ambulance, he's like, "Holy S, he's breathing." So he starts breathing on his own. And I'm like, yes, like, all is well. It's going to be okay. So that's Friday night. And so we go to the hospital, Oka Hospital. And I'm like by my husband's side, will not leave. I sleep at the hospital. I just did not go home. It wasn't until that Sunday that I ended up going home, but I just stayed there with them and slept in the car if I had to be out. And my husband used to tell me to take care of myself all the time. And so even with, again, the insurance, so he would sit me down and have conversations, and he'd say like, hey, again, I have this amount of money for you for insurance. What are you going to do with it? And I would say, you know, what I do. Like, oh, I'd love to start an organization, or oh, I'd love to do this. And he's like, don't take care of everybody else. Don't just give away money to all these people. He was like, take care of what God put in you to take care of. You know, do what you need to do for your success. And so he would always make sure that it was going to go in the right direction. And so he would always say, you know, take care of you. So I know one night I was at the hospital, and I would sing over my husband, and I would speak into his ear and encourage him. And then I told him, I was like, I'm going to go home and I'm going to go sleep because I've just been up, you know. And I said, I'm going to go take care of myself, so I'll be back. And so I go home, and I wasn't comfortable being home. So I drove down to my mom's house. And when I went to my mom's house, I got like a call. Well, yeah, I got a call. And the call I got was a little irritating. But it was said that, you know, they keep trying to give your husband blood. Because come to find out, he had a seizure, so he was bleeding. They said, they keep trying to give your husband blood, and it's not staying in him. You know, it just keeps coming right back out. And this was a relative of his, you know, and he was like, somebody else could use this blood, so what do you want us to do? And I was like, I want the doctors to do whatever they need to do to keep my husband, you know, whatever work they need, because that's not in my hands. Me and my husband used to have those hard talks. So one talk we had was, he was like, look, I don't want to be on a bunch of machines and stuff. And I said, look, I can't make the decision to pull a plug. That's not my job. That's God's job. If you're supposed to be gone, we're going to let God do it. But I cannot handle that. And that was our relationship agreement. He knew I couldn't take that responsibility, you know, over him like that. And he respected that choice. So hearing his family members say that just really broke my heart, because it was like, okay, like, what do I do? You know, that was a hard situation. Do I say, oh yeah, stop working on my husband? That's something nobody wants to think about. And we're newlyweds. Like, who wants to think about something like that, you know? And so I have a moment with God, and I don't like really believe in these like that, but I got this prayer cloth. And I was like, oh my gosh, when I touched it, and I know it sounds just weird, but when I touched it, like, you could just feel like the presence of God. I said, oh, that's odd, because I don't really work that way, but okay. So I just took it, and I was praying. And I don't pray with prayer cloths. I normally just pray, but I was praying, and so I just asked God. I was like, look, I don't know what to do. And so I said, if you want to take my husband, then go ahead. Like, I give you permission. Just whatever your perfect will is, that's what I desire. I just want to be whatever your will is. So if that's what you desire to do, then okay. And went to sleep. Got a call like 4 o'clock in the morning, and they told me, like, look, your husband went into cardiac arrest. We tried to bring him back, and we couldn't. So, you know, he's gone. And so I made a trip from down the hill, Rialto, to up the hill, Victorville, 4 o'clock in the morning by myself. I didn't tell, I think I texted one person and said, like, look, I'm going to the hospital, that he's gone. And I just went, you know, up the hill. And when I got up there, one of the first things I did was just praise. And I know that sounds so weird, but I went to the chapel while they were preparing him for me to see him, and I got on my knees and I just praised God and thanked him for who he was, because the thing is, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you go through. God is still amazing. God is still good. So if the result is in my favor according to my thinking, then God is good, in that. But if it's contrary to what I believe he'll do, he's still good, and he still has a plan, and he's still amazing. And so I had to humble myself and acknowledge that, things aren't going to be perfect. Yeah, we were just married for a year and 5 months, but I got to have that year. What a privilege to have a husband that loved me so well, that poured into me, that lifted me up, and we got to share that experience. So I just humbled myself and had that time with God, and then went in and I got to see him at rest, but the whole thing of it all, and this has been a year, it's been like a year and 6 months now that I've been a widow. So I became a young widow, very young. And I said I'm 32, I'm not 32, I keep forgetting my age. And the reason why I keep forgetting my age is because when you go through something like that as a widow, or when you lose the death of a loved one, your memory changes. You don't remember the same way. And there's like a year chunk of my life that I'm just now starting to remember. So one was my birthday, and so I'm 33. But I became a widow so young, and I had to bury my husband, and we were just married like that. And if I would have just listened, that's my thing. All I had to do was listen to him. He tried to have the talk with me. He tried to be that good husband, go say, yo, make sure the paperwork's ready, make sure it's accessible, like all the stuff we should be talking about. He had those conversations, and I wouldn't listen. And I'm the person who always took care of paperwork, so it would have been in my hands to actually do it. And I just was like, no, he's going to be okay. Just in that denial, like, oh, no, he's going to be fine. God's going to heal him. But no, sometimes God's not going to heal here. And we have to be prepared. So because I was not prepared, not only did I lose my husband, but I lost, like, everything. And I was at home. God asked me some questions. And one question he asked was, because we had a dog, and he was like, and the dog ran away. And he was like, so if your dog never comes back, like, what would you do? And it was just like, okay, I won't have a dog. It's not that big of a deal. It's just what it is. And it was like, okay. And then he was like, all right, so if I was to take your home, like, what would you do? And I was like, well, God, I've been homeless before. I've gone through before. You blessed me with a home. So if you take it, you'll bless me with something else. Like, I'm not really going to shake that. And I was like, okay. And then it was like, so if I take your husband, like, how would you feel? And I had to take a pause on that one. I didn't have a quick response. And then I had to say, you know what, God? I've been single before. I've lived life without him before. And even though he's amazing, if that's what you see fit for my life, then I'll be okay, And at the end of it all, everything he asked me, every question happened. So I lost our dog, I lost our home, and I lost our husband. And so it's already bad enough grieving somebody you love like that, but to now not have financial support to take care of your home. So I had to move quickly. I lost the place, and it wasn't I was renting, so lost the place, had to move out really quick. And then I had to move, when it comes to the funeral, planning a funeral, that in itself is so ridiculously expensive. And you can't trust everybody because they take advantage because of where you're at in your mental state, because of grief, And so I'm sitting there trying to plan it, but I have no money. And I'm looking at caskets like, oh, the least expensive one is $1,000. I don't have $1,000. I wasn't working because I was taking care of him. So we didn't have anything like that, you know? So how do I make financial decisions lacking finances in this moment? So I'm grieving and stressing because of all this burden that's now on me that could have been taken care of if I would have just listened and did what I was supposed to do with my husband like he asked me to. Because till this day I have not found any paperwork. Till this day I don't know where the stuff is because I didn't take charge when he opened the door of that situation. So there was lack for a long time. So the blessing in it is I got to have a funeral. It was not the kind I wanted, but it was a kind that was affordable. So two amazing people helped me with it and donated to take care of the cost for it. So I had him cremated, which I didn't want him cremated, but I didn't have a choice because I didn't have no money. I couldn't afford nothing else. So whatever they could bless me with, okay, yes, that's what we'll do. Okay, that's just fine. Because there is no other option, you know? So I had to go through all that process. And then I end up moving in with my sister. So I'm sleeping on their couch. You know, I'm practically homeless. I'm sleeping on their couch in their living room with their family. Can't really get the rest I need. Can't really get that one-on-one I need, you know, because, I mean, we're in the living room. People in and out. I don't have no me time. I don't have no personal healing time unless everybody was gone. So I'm going through this whole circumstance and this whole situation. Thank God, eventually, which was last year. So it was like a year where I was just down financially, you know, and then God picked me back up. So yes, now I have my place, and yes, now I have a car, and you know, and I'm doing okay. But just that struggle that I had to experience, that I honestly didn't have to experience. That was because I didn't listen when the door was open. And it's so crucial for people to just have the tough conversations. It's so crucial just to make sure you're covered and to talk and do whatever's necessary, because I didn't think I would be a young widow. You know, and I'm a Christian too, so it wasn't like, you know, like I was believing, like, oh, everything's going to be great. Like, no. Sometimes it's a hard road that you have to go down, but God is so faithful and He's so good. So my goal with all this is to now push people. I want to help families because it was so hard for me, like tremendously hard for me, and I don't want anybody. I mean, thank God, even though it sucks, I thank God we didn't have kids, because I couldn't imagine. I would have been a single parent struggling, you know, like I can't even imagine that. I mean, there's some people out there that is like that. They have that situation where they lost their loved one and now they're immediately a single parent struggling. What do you do with that? That could have been taken care of. You know, you don't have to do GoFundMe. You don't have to do car washes and chicken dinners to bury somebody when there's insurance out here to take care of it. Like, that's my hope, is that families grab onto that and say, let me take this seriously. Let's have the tough conversation, because we're all going to die. That's something we know. We're all going to die. No one can escape that, no matter what. So we might as well be covered to take care of our family, to make it easier for them so then they can properly grieve. So that's my story.
Because, you know, our exit strategy is to have salvation, to go home to Jesus. But, you know, as we're joyfully jamming with Jesus in heaven, we have to be reminded of our family. What are our families doing here on earth? Because grief is hard enough all by itself. But to add a financial hardship on top of that makes the grief process so much harder, and yet it's avoidable.
Right.
So that's what we're really here to talk about, how avoiding those financial hardships when you can have your stuff together.
Yeah. So that's a lot to be said, right? If you can imagine, like, so let's talk to a millennial, let's talk to a young person that's married, right? Like Jessica said, she didn't anticipate being a widow after 17 months of being married. So all things being equal, she's thinking they have, 30, 40, 50 years of discovering themselves. But sometimes you don't have that. Sometimes it doesn't matter how old you are. It's about making sure that you're positions yourself the best way you can to be the better version of yourself and to win on all levels. So you have two extreme stories. You have a mother whose 8-year-old children passed away, but they're covered. right? Because the person is like, but on the other end, the key question you got to keep asking yourself is what ifs. And a lot of times, if you frame questions or thoughts with what ifs, it makes you think differently. So, what if Jessica would have made sure to know the name of the company, to know the policy number, and to make sure she's the beneficiary on the policy, right? Because, like, her husband paid into this. So, technically, the insurance company hasn't paid out. Because we haven't found that just yet, but no worries. In the next 3 months, we're going to go through that exploratory and really help her get to the bottom of that as well. So we go through that as well. No children, total different extremes, but at the same extent, it boils down to the same thing. Now, hey, I know no one wants to talk about theft, so I'm not thinking about this as theft, because in all actuality, two different type of policies that could provide for them. Like Jessica's husband could have had a policy that offered living benefits, so while he was living the stress of paying bills, her not working, and just enjoying life, they could have accessed their money while he was still living to help him get better, right? And so I don't want to make this doom and gloom. What I do want to say is I don't have a test to turn into a testimony. What I do have is that I just happen to be in an industry. I happen to be a solution to the person that's like, this is tugging at my heart, but who do I go talk to? And I'm like, you can come talk to me, because I can help you navigate the role of what do you need, what type do you need, if you already have life insurance, if it's the best one, if it's the latest and greatest. Like, most people don't keep their same cell phone. Why do you have the same life insurance policy from 5 years ago? I mean, if you really think about it, if technology moves that great, guess what? Every single industry in this world moves that fast as well. And that includes life insurance. The second piece of it is financial literacy, and just understanding finances is everybody needs to understand that. Everyone needs to understand that. So think about these two ladies. Think about Angela. Think about Jessica. We can talk to millennials. We can talk to baby boomers. We can talk to, Generation X. We can talk to every generation about the importance of understanding your status. Have an exit strategy just in general. Why not? And at the end of the day, I just believe that what they went through was not in vain. Mm-hmm. Right? So Jessica is in the process of, writing her book. Angela has already written her book. I just happen to be the vehicle to help you now that you've heard it or going to read about it, and you're thinking, who can I go talk to? Well, I'm licensed to talk to you. So I'm just not a random person. I'm in the licensed industry that's highly regulated, and we do educational service, so you have no obligations. We're not trying to sell you something. We really are trying to educate people. We're not trying. We are educating people on the importance of understanding their financial status and helping you get to where you want to be. And a part of your financial status and portfolio has to be life insurance. Because let's think about it. Where else could Jessica's husband leave her almost almost $700,000 tax free? And he was only in his 40s. He would have to start working when he was like 10. Mm-hmm. And to leave her that kind of money tax free, tell me, if somebody can give me a question and can really answer that, like, really, where else? And then Angela, it doesn't matter how much it is. What she didn't have to do is she was the total opposite of Jessica. She was at the funeral place like, yeah, I want that casket, and I want that one. Matter of fact, make sure it's marble. The silver on the top is great, because guess what? She had coverage. Yes. But she still had to deal with the sorrow of her kids passing away. Every day she wakes up like, I am outliving my 8-year-olds. Like, how can I make today impactful because of that? There's a reason why she or her other family members didn't pass away. And so it's a gift for me to be able to really listen to their stories, learn something different each time about the stories, and I count it a privilege to be able to collaborate with them to help get their testimony out to a bigger audience, but more importantly to just push their platform to whatever point I can push it. And it makes it easier for my conversation that I can have with anybody about what I just talked to you about.
Cool. And then how can people reach you?
What's the number? Well, we have 2 numbers, so here we go. So I'm going to give you 2 numbers. So How people can reach me directly, Nicole Mosley, if you are wanting to talk about financial services. If you're wanting to talk about that, you call me 909-278-7157. If you want to talk to us about us, public speaking, an interview, talk show, radio, articles, all that, you call the number Jessica's going to give you.
909-566-2262. So again, 909-566-2262. And please leave a voice message.
Yeah.
Very detailed voice message.
Same for me as well, and I promise to give you a call back and within 24 to 48 hours.
Yeah.
Definitely on both ends. So yeah, there's no, and even if you only remember one number, it doesn't matter. We're like collaborating, so we are 100%
Exactly.
transparent with one another in regards to what we're doing across the board.
Yeah.
So if you know a church, a retreat, a conference, a book club that'd like to hear this absolutely fascinating supernatural testimonies from the living God we serve, we're more than excited to come out and share. This is my book. My book is titled Miracles in Action, Turning Pain into Power and Grief into Peace. And I'm so excited that my book now has been turned into a documentary film. So for the readers, here we go. And for the people who like to watch movies,
But she does have a website. So
yes, and my website is miraclesinaction.com.
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome.
Yeah. And so I'm working on my book. So I did two things. I guess for the widows out there. So as far as my healing process, when everything started to happen, I started to journal. So every day for like 5-6 months, sometimes I still do it once in a while, but it was like every morning I'd wake up and I would journal my raw, real feelings from what I was going through. So that is going to be turned into a raw, real book to show my true process from the grief, the initial grief, to the healing process. And I'm still healing. It's still going on. But that's one book. And then the other one that will be coming would just be my testimony. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So I think there's a couple lessons to learn from this. One is that collaborating is much better than trying to be an idol, right? Because as you see, we're pushing each other's platform openly, honestly, as we can. And there's some intertwining stuff behind the scenes. Everybody stays in their lane with telling their story and understanding that they get to work in their lane that God has given them. Does that mean we can't cross over? No, it doesn't mean that. It's just that everybody gets to be the best. They get to excel at what they do great.
Exactly.
In regards to that. And then, so collaborating is like, if you could really understand leverage and the ability to partner with people and leverage their time, their mind, their story, their energy to get your platform out to a bigger audience, to really live in purpose and be intentional, that's like super huge to really, learn about. And because you can cross over in different arenas, if that makes sense, right? And then secondly, the importance of having hard conversations and asking yourself, like, what if blah blah blah, right? And so we've just talked about life insurance, that we just talked about what happens at death, but we haven't even talked about the life insurances that you can enjoy while living. And nobody really knows about that. That's a part of, because nobody in their mind thinks life insurance and living, right? But there's so much more to life insurance that you can really understand in this short amount of time without me dominating the conversation, and that's not the point. The point is that you can see where we're collaborating, where there's a great need for women to collaborate and to partner with one another. It's a great need for entrepreneurs to collaborate and partner with another. It's called accountability, and iron sharpens iron, and help each other get better at what we do, just in general. And then there's another movement going on here of understanding just financial literacy. What's your blueprint, and having an exit strategy in all aspects of life. If you have an exit strategy to, like, go from being a working person to being a retired person, all those different things that you can have, you should have it for this part of your life as well. So it's quite dynamic. And then you have Well, I consider Jessica young because if I was like 33, yeah, right, and ideally, no, I mean like she's 33, she's a widow with no kid. Like she has a lot more time to some degree than I do as a married person with child. That and I don't like. I'm in awe of it to some degree because if I kind of knew what she's learning right now, my whole like at the age I am right now, which is 41, it just would be a little different. It just would be a little different for me because I learned it a little later in life. And